Right, welcome back, welcome back. It is the next day actually, and we are gonna talk about this. I was too tired yesterday. I ate my food. I took my notes, and we are back with the discussion part. Right, most of this will probably be more of a hey, I really like that frame, or I do like how they put that shot, and here's why, or I really like how that looks, but I don't know why. So, little disclaimer for everybody who is not interested in me just highlighting interesting references or cool looking shots or things that I noticed personally beyond just discussing the themes, because the themes are not yet established as well as it would be the case in the middle or at the end of the arc. We do have obviously a little bit of grounds to go on, grounds for speculation, but most of that probably happened already in the discussion after the regular reaction video. This is just a little bit extra for everybody who just wants to check out my discussion. And at the end of it, we're probably gonna look at some very interesting things right there in my bookshelf. Some new editions that I brought with me from home, from my little vacation, that if you guys are interested, stick around for that. But let's get into it. At 7 seconds, I need to find a way to actually properly go to the exact moment I want to go to, because I don't have that established with MPV player. If there's another player like Pop Player or something where you can do that more easily, do let me know. I would really appreciate that. But this little eye flash, I'm not sure what we're seeing here. I do really like it, but we do have that little gleam in her eye, which is kind of like a reflection or light reflecting within her, but also it could be interpreted as some kind of like idea or will or whatever. So some glint in her eye. I don't know what it means though. We see it later when she meets Deathtopia. We do see it there as well, and in this case, her eye is actually red, which obviously the blue eye right now and the red eye later could represent, right now we're looking at somebody who is still within life, and the red eye would be like the wish to die. But I'm not that clear on that, because these blue eyes are supposedly, at least from my perspective, the actual color of her eyes, and later on they're red because probably of that will to die, or maybe like just the welcoming of that situation that we're seeing. Still, I'm kind of right. The same goes kind of for what we see a couple of seconds later. We are having her closing her eye, right? And then we see a red flash. We saw that the last time when we were on episode 6 of Off-Monster Season with Nadeko, where there was like that moment where Meek Nadeko was saying something that triggered our current Nadeko, kind of, and she kind of went in on that emotionally, but I don't know what it means in this specific case. Maybe it is her tendency to think about her life and wanting to end it, right? I'm kind of circumventing that idea because we're within the first 5 minutes of the recording, and I don't want you to pick up on that. We're gonna use the word later on, probably, with our Deathtopia virtuoso, you know what, master. And obviously it is a reference, kind of, if this is the idea behind it, it is that metaphorically alluring to that, and then we do have the connection to her name, to Deathtopia's name. So I do wonder if this is actually the intention here, or if I'm reading too much into that. Obviously you can always read too much into a certain thing. It's kind of part of the deal with Monogatari. Sometimes you're just over relying on your idea of connecting everything. It happens the same way it happens in English class, for example. Well, in my case, it would be German class, where you do talk about a lot of poems, and you do like lyrical analysis of texts and of poetry and of writing, and you're trying to find a way to interpret the author's intent, and oftentimes you kind of go way beyond of what the author was actually intending, because they didn't think that far, right? Maybe they put a couple of thoughts and general ideas within that, but oftentimes we ourselves taking in media, taking in art, we kind of put our own perspective onto it and project something onto it that is within ourselves rather than within the author who actually made it. And maybe, yes, there's general tendencies that are being displayed here that we bounce off of, right? That are reflected within us, and then we shoot them back and we're like, yes, this is that intention. Even though the intention maybe wasn't all that clear, maybe the intention was more on a vague level, on a feeling level. Or maybe the author themselves, they didn't quite know what they felt, but they knew how they wanted to express themselves, and that is what became of that, right? A piece of writing, but also a piece of media in general, a piece of art, is always an interaction between, at the very least, two individuals, that is the author and the recipient. It's the same with any form of communication. You do put something out, words most of the time, gestures, the way you meme, right? And then you get something back from your opposite. And all of these things are kind of prone to filtering on a visual level, on an auditive level. We do filter information and pick out the things that are important to us, that seem important to us. Sometimes it's not all that important, right? Somebody smiles weirdly and we kind of pick up on that, and suddenly it means something to us because there's something that kind of, in association with all the things around them happening, make us feel a certain way, even though that might not have been the intent. And that is what makes communication at the same time very cool and a very, let's say, sophisticated and advanced and complex way of relaying information to another person, right? To create an understanding, but at the same time also a very difficult task to do properly, to make sure that nothing is lost in translation and that we don't overestimate things that are being put into something. But obviously, as we are with Monogatari, Monogatari is a piece of media that relies heavily on trying to put as much meaning into something as humanly possible, as we know from Nishio Isen's writing as well. There's so much meaning in there, so many double entendres, so many dual meanings, so many little quips and puns, but sometimes we do search for a meaning that goes deeper than what actually was the case, and in the end it was kind of just a simple joke, right? It was a simple word pun, for example. We'll see about that later when I'll talk about it when it comes up. The next scene we do have is that I think I really like the way they make the shadow of this person, I forgot her name, of this first victim of ours that we see in the very intro of this episode. It's very distinctive. I do feel like it makes it very easy for us to identify the person later on. It's not hard to differentiate between her, like especially with the little tail she's got there, little ponytail. It's not even quite a ponytail, it's very small. Very distinctive hairstyle, and we do immediately recognize who is who when we do see them later on, although the weird Araragi corpse thing, I'm still not sure what that is about. But yeah, she kind of like her shadow, and also her herself kind of low-key looks a little bit like Kobeni from Chainsaw Man. I thought that yesterday. I was like, looks very interesting. Like, I've seen something familiar before, and I was like, yes, Chainsaw Man. At 012, that is just a couple of seconds later. I do love this. Like I said, in the main discussion, it does remind me a little bit of Madoka. What I really like about this shot is that as we're panning across here, right, she's making her way towards a goal. First of all, we don't see the goal, so we don't know where the journey is going. Creates this feeling that we're aimlessly wandering about, or that we're just automatically going away, that we already know where we're supposed to go, right? Going home, for example, or going to practice. In this case, I would say going home. And you're automatically doing that while you are in deep thought. This is underlined by the fact that the upper part of the screen is incredibly dark, which makes it very hard for us to make out any specific details that are happening up there. And it simultaneously obscures her head and her upper torso, which makes us puts us into this mood, into this atmosphere of that her general thoughts are obscured, right? She is in the dark, kind of. She is just, her entire headspace is down. If you do follow me on that meaning. I don't know if I'm expressing that properly. Kind of like dark thoughts are clouding her mind and her perception of her environment. While the only thing that is really glimmering here is the little dots of the lights of the industrial complex that is on the other side of the river. And it's creating kind of like a very interesting sheen that the night is creating, like the night sky and everything. It kind of really reminds me of what we saw in the early Bake episodes. I think I said that already, but especially if you look at stuff like the episode with Senjugahara, Tsubasa Cat, I think it was 1, where we did have, like the episode 12, if I remember correctly, we do have them going out into the woods and looking at the sky, and that had a similar green sheen of the sky and the environment and everything else for like the nighttime feel. But at the same time, it wasn't the same because, as I said, we do have that very dark upper half of the screen, which is kind of obscuring all of our vision in a way. I do really like some of these interesting art pieces that we're putting in between, right? We use flashcards, yes, but we don't just use the traditional Monogatari flashcards. We also just kind of sometimes use other art styles, as we do see in this case when we describe Harimaseki, our first victim here, and we do see that little basketball at the top, just that very simple drawing that looks like a basketball, which kind of gives you the idea that basketball in her life, in her world, basketball is above all else and nothing else matters, kinda. It stands even above her name as a representation of her as an individual. So her individuality, the person she is, comes after that thing. At least that's how I read it. We do have 19. This also reminds me heavily of Bakemonogatari, especially Tsubasa Cat. Episode 14, episode 15, if you know, you know, right? The street lights, the darkness, all of that stuff. All of that, yes, you know what I mean. And she's walking like a zombie, which obviously is very, very, like her head down, completely down, right? First of all, it expresses worry. It expresses that her head is very heavy, right? Heavy thoughts. Ruminating on stuff that's dragging you down, kind of, but also exhausted, right? Basketball here, basketball there, everything, but stuff is not working out the way you want it to. I regret my decisions. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the general vibe we're going for. It's also very cool that we're seeing the school at night, right? These familiar sights that we've seen 1,000 times, but now they're at night and it is green hue that is above everything, right? We've seen every one of these shots before, and I do love how in many of these new episodes we do have a recontextualization of things that we already have seen in the past, be that all the way back in Bake or later on, of course, as well. We have seen this before, but not at night, right? We have seen it in the daytime, glimmering, whatever, right, in the sun rays. We haven't seen it with the night sky and the green hue of everything. And shout out to the basketball court and Hana Monogatari, which immediately you see the basketball court, you're like, Kanbaru, Hana, you immediately think that, of course. At 38, we do have like the basketball coming down into the camera, and then she's reaching her hand out, right? She's stretching her hand out, and it almost feels like she's reaching out for the basketball, but the next thing we see is her hand going slightly down, and then we're looking at her from the display of her own phone, which she's gonna take up and look at her schedule, which is a very cool way to do this. Like, this is what I mean, like, there's no deeper meaning to it other than being playful with how we're using the camera angles, but I do love that about Monogatari, because every time you're looking at the screen, there's something else happening that makes you pay attention, right? Or maybe it has a deeper meaning. Do let me know. Write down in the comments if you do have like that specific scene. We have something similar later on with Gan, where she looks at both phones, she's dual wielding, and then she's holding the phones up like that, and suddenly we see it from the perspective of the phone. Maybe there is a meaning in there, right? That I haven't gleaned. Like, I'm overlooking shit too, even though I spent hours upon hours analyzing this stuff. Like half a week later, somebody writes a comment down below and I'm like, holy shit, you're right, how did I miss this? But this is how media is. Everybody is able to see something different in it. And the amazing thing is, most of the time, both of you are right? Most of the time, both of you point stuff out that is actually very valid for the themes that are going on here. But yeah, my general idea here is that she is, the hand obscuring everything else is, we'll see that later on as well, in terms of like how the techniques work that we're employing in the series in general, but especially I have noticed, especially the last couple of episodes, we're employing a lot of techniques where we're using either parts of the body or objects in the foreground or in the background which are in focus, while at the same time characters are doing stuff or talking to one another or walking to a certain destination, and we're highlighting these objects for us to later go into that and actually focus on these objects, which I really like, because it kind of enables us as the viewer to see the things that will become important before they actually are in the center of focus of our story. It's kind of a way to quickly foreshadow things that are happening a couple of seconds later, to prime us for the idea of, hey, pay attention to this specific thing that's gonna come up. And there's, right, oftentimes you do see an object in the foreground. We'll kind of point it out later as well. You see an object in the foreground. We're still talking to one another, and suddenly the topic of the conversation will turn to the object or whatever we've seen in focus, and then it will put a top-down shot or like a very detailed shot of that thing within our frame as a follow-up to that primer that we did have. We do that a lot when we're looking at psychological experiments to see if they are primed for certain stimuli, if they're quicker to react to them. It can help us a lot to determine various things, right? Especially when you come like, there's a lot of things done about implicit biases as well, where we do try to prime with certain stimuli that are within a certain topic, that are associated with certain things, and then we're trying to look how the reaction of people are, associations that we have maybe in our mind that are implicit, right? We can't point them out. We can't be like, okay, I have this association. Well, we can point them out if we're looking deep within ourselves, but we do try to find that out without asking people explicitly for it, because oftentimes we do have certain beliefs, certain worldviews, certain ideals, and they are kind of sometimes overshadowing what's actually happening in the back of our heads. For example, I'm pretty sure that there is a lot of implicit racial biases within me as somebody who has grown up in the 90s in a very industrial, primarily white country. I'm pretty sure that's within me right there, even though I'm not explicitly racist or explicitly in any way discriminatory against people, and even though I'm very open for most people's point of view and experiences out there. But I'm sure there's stuff that my brain associates with certain other stuff that is not free of certain tendencies. And this is what you can find out while in these experiments, where you're priming certain pictures, certain things, and you're trying to find out how people react. We can do the same with fears, right? We're looking at phobias or whatever, and we're trying to prime people for certain things. Look for learning experiences that are at the bottom of that. But yeah, it's always really cool, I feel. So right here, I did point this out in the original discussion. I do really love how we're using the fisheye lenses. I did love that from the get-go when we started with this quote-unquote new Monogatari season, where we do have a lot of horror elements, or also just general cinematic elements that are supposed to represent certain feelings, right? Later on, we do see that with Araragi when he is in shock about something that is revealed to him, but here we also see it, the world kind of closing in on her, right? It's like all of these white trees, which is a great contrast to the night sky that we have, but very simplified in this shot. And the white trees are kind of caging her in almost. Like this is almost like a cage or like some looming creature above her, right? It's above her head, it's oppressing her, it's boxing her in, and her gaze is already downwards. So this is amplified by that, right? She's being held down by the world, basically. And she's wishing for something to break her out of this, as we see in the subtitles here, where she's like, please, somebody attack me. I just want out of this fucking thing. I just want an excuse to get out of this hellish cycle that I'm in. This situation that I'm like deadlocked into. The very interesting thing about this fisheye thing, about like the way we use the sky, is also we do have this dark deep blue, which I do associate that with depression, kind of low-key. I don't know why, but it always kind of fun fact, when I'm like clinical psychology, I do a lot of that right now. And when I'm studying for my exams, I'm often color coding the sheets in order to make me more easily categorize certain things, right? So I do categorize stuff like anxiety disorders or depression or schizophrenic category disorders and whatever, right? And I'm trying to differentiate them between one another. And if I do find stuff that is associated with those more than others, I do try to color code them, or I'm trying to differentiate between social aspects of a disorder, of like psychological issues, and cognitive ones. And I'm kind of color coding those. And cognitive, for example, I have like light blue, and social, I do have light green. At some point I decided that because it felt right. And depression is always, for me, like affective emotions, depression, especially depression, because mania is more light blue in the cognitive area. And dark blue is always associated for me with depression, kind of, with like almost like deep water, if you know what I mean. I've seen a lot of anime use that. Maybe I've got it from that, right? That the association is there, that deep water means depression, and as that I would associate a dark blue color with that. Either way, this is how it feels to me. And later on, we will use that in the same way, or more or less already have used it in the past in Tsubasa Tiger, with the background sky of Gaen and how everything surrounds her. But we'll see about that in just a bit. Her dead eyes is a very nice touch, by the way, which definitely adds to the atmosphere. The way she looks into the camera like she doesn't even fucking care, and the way half of her face is lit up, right, to kind of highlight her facial expression, but the other half is in the dark, which kind of more expresses the mood she is in and the stuff that she's holding back within herself, I would assume. Oh yeah, exactly. This frame was amazing. First of all, obviously we do have the foreshadowing of Suicide Master with the half moon, but what this reminds me a lot of is Obari season 2 opening, right? When Ogi, right, creates the bike and then shoots up in the sky and the whole city is dark, and then the bike turns around and the skyline, the buildings are all starting to light up. This is kind of what it reminds me of, and it makes sense, right? We are in the same town and we're kind of looking at the building front at night where the lights are all up. The next shot we're looking at is this one, and this is absolutely impressive. I do love that. I do love shadow work in general, because shadows are really a cool thing to play with. But this reminds me of 6.5, right? Episode 6.5, where we have like fairy tale-esque or almost shadow play-esque. And this is kind of a reflection of that same vein of technique that we're using here. And obviously we're using the trees. Shout out Koyumi as always. But also we're using the crows, which are the sign for vampire, or indirectly to kiss shots line of vampire we've seen that since ShinobuMonogatari, so this has been a theme from that point on. But yeah, I do love how it reminds me of that part of episodes, foreshadowing Deathtopia with her connection to Kiss Shot, and a dead tree. Very interesting that we're using dead trees, right? We could have used, there's no particular, I mean, I guess we do have a particular timeline, but I don't think it's deep winter, so we don't have to be using dead trees, but dead trees kind of connect us back to episode 7-8 with Deathtopia, which she was running or was walking through an entire country that got devastated by Asarolahime. And we have dead trees everywhere, and her hanging from a dead tree in the house as well, right? We're using the trees a lot here later on as well, with the white tree separating our first victim and Deathtopia standing on opposite sides, and we have a tree separating them, much like in episode 7, the tree was separating Asarola and Deathtopia sitting back to back when they were talking to each other for the first time. So using that is cool. And I'm also thinking of Monster, another series I'm doing. Shout out to Monster. Check that out if you're interested. But we do have a lot of tree thematic in Monster as well, where we do have a lot of camera angles where we do look at things as if we're perched up as a bird in a tree. And oftentimes those are dead trees as well. And dead trees give us kind of a feeling of life that is stagnating, right? Like winter is often associated with cold feelings. It is associated with maybe even kind of low-key nutritional deprivation. It feels a lot like winter is a very depriving time. It's a very deprivation time. Not enough light, less food, less heat. All of these things I associate with winter, and indirectly with dead or with bare trees, because this is what you see mostly in terms of nature in winter. Yeah, and here again, like, we're using that so much, the tree imagery. I also like how we have like the light and dark, right? A clear-cut difference, like much like with her face in one of the earlier shots I pointed out. We do have the same with the moon, the half moon with the light side and the dark side. A duality kind of that's being expressed here, but I can't really tell what kind of duality we're trying to express. I'm kind of not getting to the bottom of that. It's really hard to parse that out for me at the current time. But yeah, we also have a half moon, which in my opinion, we're not at the full moon yet. What that means is the story is just beginning, right? The stuff is just starting to pick up, and I would assume that much like the climax of the last arc of the Bon Appetit arc was a full moon, maybe we'll end it on a full moon this time as well. And it would make sense in terms of time frame as well, right? The incidents have happened in the last couple of days. A full moon normally I don't even know. I'm kind of stupid, so I'm kind of uneducated about certain things regarding moon cycles, but I would assume that a full new moon only comes once a month, maybe twice a month. Either way, it's like 2 weeks up to 4 weeks maybe that the time frame for this arc could be, given the fact that this entire episode was about a day, right? If we count out the couple of days that were kind of preluding all of that when our first victim died right here, or maybe the 2 days, it was 2 days kind of, right? 2 victims in the same day, and then the next day the other victim. It would make sense that it's a couple of weeks that this arc could take. 150 shows us top-down shot, which is really nice with the clouds parting. We already said that. The glint, I'm very interested in where the glint is coming from. Is it the dagger? Because it feels like it's not the dagger. The blade of the dagger is right there. What is that orange lens flare that's not orange, purple lens flare that's coming in here? What the fuck is happening? Like I said, the tree separating the two of them, really cool. And white trees is also a very interesting thing. I guess it makes sense in terms of like the contrast it puts out here when we're in the middle of the night. A black tree wouldn't have the same effect because it wouldn't be as stark within a overall dark scene. So it makes sense. I also do wonder why she's introducing herself. right? Because normally, I mean, I guess if you feed your... Why are you introducing yourself? Your victim is gonna die soon anyway, or at least be left almost dead. Unless you want them to be saved, and then they tell the person who they got saved from, this was the person, right? She named herself. But that is way too obscured, especially if she leaves her initials at the crime scene anyway. And we do not have any sign that we are having the flashcards already, so this is definitely a Deathtopia thing. Really cool how we're zooming in and the eyes are glowing, right? The golden eyes, much like Kiss Shot also had golden eyes, and then the crows flying by. And her getting that devious smile. I just spotted that. I didn't even write that down, but I just spotted that. That line that's kind of beheading her in a way. Really, really cool. And now we're looking down a road and she's in the spotlight. Very cute Shinobu with the donuts. And yeah, I wanted to point that out. It's right here. First of all, the gleam. Like I said earlier, the gleam in the eye. Now suddenly the eyes are red. So yeah, the eyes are looking at death, I assume, right? Maybe even wishing for death, as we kind of have gotten to know. But what is that gleam, right? I don't know. Especially if it travels at the shape of the eye, it travels. So I do wonder what that means, or if it's just a cool visual effect that they thought out. Also, Shinobu Mustard. It's Shinobu Mastered. I talked with people about that, and I'm like, holy shit. Stop with those puns, okay? Stop it. But also, I still wonder why it's mustard, but I guess it just fit, right? Mastered, and then mastered is the intended word that you want to use, and it sounds kind of like mustard. And condiments are funny, I guess. But or maybe Shinobu just likes mustard at this point, right? Maybe she hasn't told us about her addiction to hot dogs in addition to Mr. Donuts. Who fucking knows? Monster Season broadcast #1. We're officially in Monster Season now. Time to celebrate, people. Also, time to mourn the fact that we only have about, probably at the time of recording this, about 1 month left of Monogatari before we have to wait. Oh, it's gonna be so sad. It's gonna be doubly sad because I'm gonna be deprived of Monogatari, and I'm also gonna be deprived of around 1K views each week. Alright, we're continuing in Monster Season with this frame in the General Hospital. Hey, Guyan, how you doing? Very pretty, but also screw you. I said that enough in the original thing, so don't need to highlight it anymore. It's very interesting how in the way we frame this, all of the body parts are kind of chopped off. Almost reminds me of Koyomi Monogatari episode 11-12. If you know, you know. I mean, all of you who are watching this have seen Monogatari, right? When he gets chopped into little pieces with Heartspawn, right? I don't even know how it's called. Kokoro Batari, whatever, right? Like Kokoro Batari, Yume Batari, something around those. I don't know how the exact name was. I do love this little panel here that he's describing himself almost like he's kind of putting down a report or an essay for college. And we do have the college, the typical like college block, the kind that you use for math, by the way, not the one you use for writing. Although I always preferred this one because it just looks better. Like the ones that just have the horizontal lines for writing kind of look too empty to me. So I always preferred the square ones. Age 19. When you're growing, dude, you're growing. This is kind of what I meant. I think I mentioned it in the original episode already, but we're having objects in the foreground, in the background, talking around them, having our main characters engage and circumvent them and whatnot, but we're seeing them as the audience, we're seeing them primed up before we're putting our attention towards that and then talking about it on a more detailed level. Holy shit, bro. Since when is Araragi this hot? Okay, hello? Hello? Dude is cleaning up really nice at this point in time. Like, holy shit, he's handsome. Also very cool how he touches his neck. I think I really like that little... When we mentioned the vampirization and everything, and he's like, that's a very human gesture, right? We do this stuff if we're talking about something and we're like, hey, I do like your haircut, and then you're like, all right, you're touching it, or it's kind of a very affirming reaction in a way. I do also like how she's not directly answering him, because she's clearly hiding something, right? This is one of those typical ways you kind of maybe Gaen is trying to prevent Araragi from seeing through her not lie. I don't want to say lies, because it's not actual lies, but it's more like she is evading his questioning in a way, but she's also playing him, she's manipulating him. And in that way, while she's doing that, she's like, safe, huh? Right? Safe is kind of like not a trigger word, but like a very special word for Araragi, and she's just putting that out there in order to, right, reinforcing it in order to keep that on track and use his tendency to try to save people and help people so she can instrumentalize him for her needs. And what she's doing here is like looking up and to the side, not looking into his eyes, turning away from him, but also turning the face up so he doesn't see her exact facial expression while she's doing all of that. Also really cool angle that we don't see all that often. A short time after, we do have this Izuku sky. I'm gonna call it Izuku sky, which feels very tumultuous, right? The way the clouds are being kind of swirled in some kind of almost tornado-like shape, and the way it looks like there is cold air here, but there's also hot air going on. At least that's kind of like the feeling I get. I really like this pattern in general, but it kind of expresses very well where Gaen stands in general. Very tumultuous in a way, but also it's all circling around her as an individual. And we always see that, right? We saw that in her first introduction. I think it was in Tsubasa Tiger, where she appeared, and then the very sky was revolving around her. She is in control, and she is, in many of these shots, she is in control of the camera and of our perception of things. A little bit later, we have this shot, which is like a mountain of corpses. And this reminds me of 6.5, right? Where we do have like the Princess Tale and the mountain of corpses in front of the palace. But we also have that short Senjugahara reference, which is really cool. And then we basically reference all of Bake, and even with Bird and Bee, even Nisemonogatari. All of his history of helping girls in need. Apparently all girls, right? There's no boys who need help. Yeah, again, these framings, right? Our characters being framed and being framed by the environment, or objects in the environment taking center stage, and the characters framing the object itself, right? Look at this. We're talking across the body, or the general capsule or whatever it is the body is in, and we're framing that, right? The characters Araragi and Gaen are framing the thing that we're talking about right here. While in other shots later on, we do see that with Kanbaru and Higasa and Araragi sitting in Kanbaru's room, the branches are actually framing the characters. It's very interesting how we can flip that on its head and it still works, kind of. It doesn't matter if we frame characters with an object or if we frame an object with characters. It works on a visual level. Don't you point your finger at me, Gaen. Yeah, like I said, she's so much in control of the camera. Look at that. Right? We're looking at the finger. We're imagining Kagenui. She's scrolling past Ononoki's stuff. Putting the finger here, she's still in the, like, right? We're using the finger in the middle of the frame all the time. And again, we're looking at her and suddenly reminds me of episode 8 with Deathtopia. She is in the dominant position. And this is kind of like a power move that you know from cinema history, kind of more like. I don't know where it exactly comes from, but she's crossing her legs, which is a very it's a very provocative but also dominant gesture. And we reinforce this feeling by looking from the ground up, and the ground even being slightly tilted as if we're like very much a very tiny object on the ground looking up. Her eyes and everything, right? She's center frame in this entire telling of tales. And she's trying to get him to actually do her bidding, which, I mean, nothing too bad about that, right? Nothing too terrible about that, but still, right? It's a way for her to influence him in a way. Also, Koyomi calendar, holy shit. Koyomi calendar. You can't make this shit up, I mean, you can apparently make this shit up. Literally. Alright, next one is the phone call. And I do wonder if this is like her calling with Ononoki, right? Communicating with Ononoki, or if she's communicating with Kanbaru, who has also been working with her. Although earlier she said she shouldn't involve herself any more into Kanbaru's life, so I do wonder where that feeling comes from and why she doesn't want to do that. She mentioned that Kanbaru lost or regained her arm, and this was a part of that. Maybe because Kanbaru is not involved in the supernatural anymore, but hey, I mean, sorry, but by Araragi going to Kanbaru, meeting up with her, and kind of getting intel on the basketball team, that would automatically kind of put her into that realm again. So I do wonder why she's leaving her alone. Maybe she just wants Kanbaru to focus on her third year and everything to go all right there. And we don't even know, like, Kanbaru doesn't know Izuku directly. She doesn't know she's her niece. So there might be some legitimate reason for her hesitation of contacting Kanbaru directly and using Araragi as a proxy. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting and notable. I really love this frame here, right? This angle and all of that happening right here. I mean, look at that, right? First of all, it's really cool that we're looking at it perched, like we're some kind of, I don't know, rat or mouse looking through like some grates outside or something. And we're looking into this shed, but also very compromising position you're in, Araragi, with the, right? I mean, this was done on purpose, okay? This was done on purpose. Araragi staying true to his reputation. I love this frame, right? I just need to highlight that. That is an absolutely cool frame. And I don't know why. I mean, tell me why. I don't know. She looks high res, she looks high detail, she looks kind of almost kind of hot. Although I'm normally not right into her all that much. She has a cool character design, she always had, but this is an amazing shot, kind of like over the back and like from a little bit up, but not too much up. It's a very unique shot, definitely, and I haven't seen many of these kinds of shots before, so right, maybe it's the over-the-shoulder strap, that might be the case. But the frame in general, even without that, the frame in general, the framing is really, really good on that scene. It's really cool. Also, holy shit, I do love this university. Like, what the fuck is this university built on? Look at that. What? Hello? What is this? Like, this is like its own separate thing, right? Surrounded by kind of like a moat or something, like almost like a castle. And then you have the shape, the way it's kind of formed out, and the way like the gardens are arranged like a flower, right? It's like a blooming flower. in the middle you do have these reds, and then it going out to yellow, and then the green surrounding all of that. These are like the pillars of the petal, kind of, and the building, the university building in the middle is kind of the flower bud. So really, really interesting. And the same with that, right? These round shapes almost like reminds me of I don't know, Stargate or something, right? Where you have like these roundish gates going. I mean, this is your typical like really cool design with like trees going through the roof here. I do wonder if that would work in real life with like the light conditions and whatnot. But yeah, really cool. We talked about this before. Maybe I have actually found something that is... Oh yeah. We're focusing on the dangling feet here, which aside from feet, in my interpretation of this is supposed to make her appear very whimsical. This is how it feels, right? We have dangling feet. The first thing we focus in, the very first thing is just dangling feet, like a kid passing the time by dangling her feet. Which, and then she's like, ooh, right? This is very whimsical. It comes across as that, right? Very lighthearted in a way. Very like nonchalant, maybe even a little bit, a tiny bit airheaded, though I don't think that makes sense for her because she's a very intelligent character on the surface level. I do love the math theme with the different wave functions that we have here, right? You definitely see, right? This is the coordinates, right? This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis, and here we do have like sinus functions and all kinds of functions going on here. Her design is very stereotypical, but I really, really like it. She's in math department, it makes perfect sense. She looks studious, right? She looks kind of cute, very cute. Her classes are kind of representing this nerdy aspect, but also the intelligence, especially with her classes not going all the way around, but the top not having a frame. Very cool in terms of like design. And then we add to that with the very, very tiny eyebrows, and her general feeling in this situation comes across as being almost insecure and nervous because of the wriggly lines that we see on her lips, right? She's smiling, which means she's positive feelings towards Araragi, but there's like this little hint of insecurity in here, right? If it would be strong insecurity, it would be a different expression, right? It would be a more negative expression because the feeling would overwhelm her. But this is like a person who knows what they're capable of, but at the same time have that little pinch of insecurity in there. That like, I'm gonna get it done, right? I know I'm gonna get it done, and it's fine, but there's that tiny aspect in there. And that's what I'm feeling on this scene. Also, signature shaft scenes, I do absolutely love that. With the eye blinks and right? We'll see that right here in just a second. Eye is blinking. We do have the hair going up, kind of swaying very slowly, right? Like it was with Oikura. We've seen that before. And then we go for the head tilt in just a second when she's like, oh, I don't get it. That is a really cool movement. Let's turn that back, okay? What the fuck are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Yeah, like I said, whimsical. This is whimsical, like the way she's kind of just wriggling her arms, doing the worm or whatever. And he's like, I don't get it. You're smarter than me. You should get this. But you know what they say, right? Just because you're intelligent doesn't mean you have the eye, the perspective, the point of view that you need in order to solve a certain problem, right? Sometimes you just need the perspective of somebody who is schooled in paying attention to that specific thing. And yeah, like I said, head tilt, amazing. 1A character introduction. This is like really cool, as always. Yeah, well, I even wrote it down. I'm like, damn, she's really cute. I really like that. Uh, all of these scenes, I do like. Every time a character tilts their head and they're kind of cute, I'm like, oh, Shaft, please stop. I can only like so many characters now. I like them all. I swear, please. Right. I mean, I said that before, but I really like how we're kind of splitting the screen text into her eyes, right? She's giving us insight, basically, right? We're within her sight now. She's giving us insight on the answer, and her eyes are in the focus, right? She's locked in, and we do feel and see that when she's doing it. Also, lol, 69. How did I not notice that the first time when it just appeared on the screen? I was like, 69. Oh, interesting. They felt very cheeky doing that. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, the chalk going into us looking at her writing it on the board is insane. It's like when I'm doing my camera thing on the like. I think I need to do it slower to kind of exemplify it. Either way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Holy shit, you got your pants high, girl. Like, what? Yeah, she's... This frame perfectly puts it down. She's a mad scientist, alright, okay? All that's missing is some Dr. Pepper. Every shot I see her in is really cool. I really love that. And we do see a lot of parallels on the Oikura level. So I'm gonna repeat what I asked in the initial discussion. Is there some connection between her and Sodachi? Because I wouldn't be surprised if there is. They are very similar. Or maybe it's just this is why Araragi jives so well with her, right? Because he did jive well with Sodachi before they had their whole thing, right? Maybe this is where Araragi is like, okay, this feels familiar because of his past with Sodachi, and maybe also having made peace with what didn't go as well with her. This transition on the second is really cool when we bounce off the board and we go back up, and the moment it hits the perfect like framing, we switch over to the screen and it's displaying the same thing that we saw a second before on the chalkboard. It's really cool. Right, he's explaining this with factorization and everything is like, yes, but there was no need for prime factorization. It's clearer than day that 67779 can be separated into 3 prime numbers. It is indeed clearer than day unless you're an idiot like me. But yeah, I for a big part of my life, I've been math allergic, so that's just a result of that. These days I'm very fascinated and I'm very interested in everything math if I happen to stumble upon it. I'm not seeking it out on my own, but every time I like learning something new about math, or maybe I need something that I actually need to be capable of when it comes to other things other skills I need to learn, and I'm learning math in the process of that, I'm always very fascinated by how it works, and it's a really, really cool thing. Math is insane that something like that even has been created as kind of a universal language of logic within the human experience. But yeah, it's more of an occasional thing and more these days than it was back in the day, so I'm lacking a lot of the foundational stuff, and because of that, I'm not the kind of person who is like, yes, I do see at a glance that this makes sense. No, I'll leave that to Araragi, okay? I also love how Araragi is basically the teacher for Gaan in this scene. He's like she's just sitting there and listening to him, and he's just calculating it up, like she's showing here at the chalkboard, right? She's teaching it to Araragi with the with the 2 chalk. I don't know how you call them. The chalk thing is where you wipe it away. He's like like a student who is just then later gonna do the work to wipe it away. Really neat, cool angle that they're using here on to make it more interesting. And then she's, oh yeah, I forgot that, right? We have the chalk and she's just pushing them back and forth, which I really love. And then she's jumping down, and we do have the amazing shot of like she's jumping on us basically. And then we get the equal sign. Basically the conclusion, which I really like, right? We're jumping down, and the moment the impact hits, it hits for us as well on like a thematic level. Oh yes, we do have the conclusion. This is what it is, right? These are the numbers. These are the letters. We suddenly, like, it makes click, right? As she's making contact with the ground. And I do love the attention to detail when just a second before, after that, a little bit of chalk is flaking off. Right, we go kind of a little bit further than that. I do find it very curious and very interesting how this last part is kind of very much what Gan expected, and this shot kind of confirms that. The way she slowly opens her eyes and still looks down, it kind of expresses to me the emotion or the thought of, as I thought, right? As I suspected. I just had what I already thought was happening confirmed by the person that I employed to find more information for me. I also find it very interesting how she's name dropping her, right? Deathtopia, Virtuoso, Suicide Master, and she's using all of the dramatics that she herself is using, right? Right, theatrical, much like Deathtopia herself is doing it. I do wonder how she so not perfectly, but very well imitates the way Deathtopia is introducing herself. Has she met her before? Has she heard about her before? Does she know everything? I don't think so, okay? I will fight you on this. She doesn't know everything. Then we have a little other piece of symbolism, which is I guess you call it a bullseye, I'm not sure, of the kind of window that you would most likely see on a cruise ship or on a ship in general, which kind of tells me that metaphorically we're on a voyage, right? We're on a voyage of discovery. This is what we're trying to express here. I talked about like the dual wielding the phones before. Creepy ass smile and everything. Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting how he reacts to that realization that he's getting from Kanbaru. It's like the girls' basketball team, right? Kanbaru from Gaan. Gaan mentions the basketball team, and he is immediately flashing to Kanbaru, and his first reaction is being sad or down about it and turning his gaze towards the ground. It often feels like if you're doing something like that, you're thinking about not only something unpleasant or sad, but also maybe you're feeling guilty about something, which is very weird. But I guess it kind of makes sense. Hana has not been this long, probably. Or maybe he very well empathizes with how Izuku feels in relation to Toei, which he then describes right here. He's like, she feels inferior to her. Also very interesting how we focus on Kanbaru, and we're seeing the shadow of Kanbaru as we're talking about the fact that more or less Izuku feels like she's living in the shadow of her big sister. Right, and how we're passing, like how the basketball is passing the light and making everything dark underneath. I do wonder if this is actually... And the water symbolism, right? Do remember all the guy in Toei talk about, like, be like water, or what? I don't even know what it was. Like, be like a poison, don't be plain water, stuff like that, which is like, girl, stop it. Don't confuse Kanbaru. But yeah, remember that from Hana Monogatari. Yeah, I don't know why she should not associate herself with Kanbaru anymore. Right, I shouldn't associate myself with Suruga anymore. Furthermore, Suruga lost her arm. I don't know, she's not grounding that on something. We don't know why she's saying that. I do love how, like, how there's this frame, the way we use the shadow is kind of the classic, oh no, I'm being possessed kind of frame that we like, that's being employed a lot in horror movies and whatnot. Like something horrible is happening off screen and we're supposed to see it, but we're also not supposed to see it exactly. Either in a way to kind of save budget on monster transformation, other weird effects, or in order to just make it a little bit more mysterious. And we're employing that right here, which is, I mean, I guess it makes sense in comparison with like Suruga Devil and everything that's going on there with the hand that she's describing, that Kanbaru regained, right? The hand that she lost, basically. Also love how we do have that reference, Kanbaru Suruga retires, fan club shocked. Oh no, not the foot Yoshis. Yeah. I do love how we're having that peek into the bag with the eye. Really cool way to put it. And we do have the traced real life footage where I'm like, alright, cool. I mean, it looks cool. It looks really neat. I do like it. Just these weird Monogatari choices sometimes. The interesting thing is here we're still having the bullseye, right? We're still having the window to the world basically on our voyage outside, and we're kind of flashing different locations that we are talking about that could be potentially something that we need to look out for when it comes to victims and whatnot. And I do love how we're flashing what I do assume and think is kind of Hachikuchi's neighborhood the second before Araragi's like, oh, by the way, should we kind of talk to Hachikuchi about it? And when we get like, and she mentions Nana, I don't want to get her involved because she would be on the oddity side. Which, again, still not sure how to interpret that for myself. I do love, like, the window feels a lot like this is what's flashing through Araragi's mind as they both talk about it. But maybe it can be interpreted differently as kind of more like a thing that, like, these are the things they're thinking about, right? Both of this is possible. We got the Shinobu crepe coming up. Yeah. I mean, she expanded, right? She expanded from donuts. Now she's doing grapes as well, which crepe is really, really good. So I can't blame her. This is brilliant. This is brilliant association and framing and using art to the fullest. We have the streams of blood which connect us to Deathtopia and vampirism, but also this is the exact same animation that we used as chapter titles in Acerola Bon Appetit. What can I say? Perfect, right? We're talking about vampire. Wouldn't be better to do this as a signature from the perpetrating vampire. He's talking about Deathtopia, and yeah. We flash into Koyomi's eyes, and we go into the eyes, and then the trees happen. It's like, how on the nose. But also, really cool that we do have more of a clear sky now. I do remember, one-to-one, I do remember that scene, man. When we met Kaiki for the first time. Only then it was steeped in red because Kaiki, right? That tree. Do 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 do. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's such a great OST. One of, I think, if not my favorite background OST that exists in Monogatari. Right, next scene we have here is actually Kanbaru kind of waving, and it's very cool how we see Kanbaru with her shadow, right? And then the next scene we have Kanbaru, and behind her, as her second shadow, basically, Higasa, and behind Higasa there's another shadow, and then she's peeking out. I really like that. And we do have our typical, like, character introduction for Monogatari characters, especially, like, the girl characters are always introduced in a very dramatic way. It's very cool because it also implies that Higasa is kind of following in the shadow or in the path of Kanbaru, in terms of like her position as the captain of the basketball team, and maybe also just in other general ways. The two of them seem to be on very, very close and very good terms. One of the only girls, interestingly enough, that has earpieces, so cool. First time I think I saw any kind of earring or whatever on a character in Monogatari. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm, but I don't think I am. I'm gonna put a shout out to Kanbaru's garden. I absolutely love her garden. It's very well designed. Also, this is a swing. There's a swing on a tree, so Really cool, really cool. And we start with the Kanbaru shenanigans. It's so amazing. Kanbaru's like, I sure as hell didn't put anything weird in this drink. Please drink it. Like, Kanbaru, stop. Like, you're on screen for like 10 seconds and you're starting already. But this is why we love you, right? This is why we love you. Araragi sitting on a pile of pillows like royalty. Right, that makes sense with how Kanbaru treats Araragi every time. Like, with the overly, like, oh, master. Right, and this is kind of the joke between the two of them, of course. I also love the classic, like, first of all, shout out to Mayoi Snail when we first saw this kind of hypno eye swirl kind of thing. But we also saw it in Nadeko Draw recently, so really cool. The delinquent stuff, right? I do absolutely love that. This reminds me of like the typical delinquent kind of like scenes on Bocchi when she's like kind of getting into her head and she's like, oh no, school festivals, and then we go into this alternate reality. But also it reminds me of stuff like Kill la Kill, for example. This would fit very well into like some kind of Kill la Kill stuff. Araragi being very close to the Holy Grail. And they're being like, nah, it ain't that easy, right? I gotta trust you with this. But yeah, I mean, we know Araragi is... He likes to pretend to be like the pervert, but if something is serious, he's treating it seriously. I also really love how clever some of these visual metaphors are, because we're going into that, and as we're talking about measurements, we do see that wrapping around her is a measurement tape, which... Right? This is absolutely not necessary to do it, but we do it anyway, which is why I love Monogatari. Love how he's getting censored, like... And now she sits high up, right? She's like, the roles are reversed. Suddenly she is the one in the high position looking down on him for his supposed reputation. But now we're talking about serious stuff. I mentioned this in the original discussion already, but the framing again, right? Branches framing in us, which is really cool. I think it's interesting that Kanbaru is like, maybe we shouldn't bother him with it. But, I mean, at this point, just come out with it, right? And Araragi takes it seriously. He's like, alright, I'll listen to you. Araragi, when did you become hot? Never thought I'd be simping over Araragi, holy fuck. Alright, last shot I wanted to look at. I absolutely adore this shot, and I don't know why. Like, somebody tell me why, I don't know. It looks fucking amazing. And I have no idea why. Alright, we're gonna look at Undead. We're gonna look at Undead, and then we're gonna wrap it up, okay? It's... Holy shit, it's been 1:16 already. For you, it's probably closer to like 50 minutes, because I'm gonna cut like the empty and me not talking and whatnot. I'm gonna cut that out. But yeah, let's look at this second ED. Very cool. We do start out with armor, which is kind of aristocratic, and then we're going into like the shogun armor. I do wonder what the aristocratic, like more like knightly armor is supposed to represent, because we do know the shogun armor is the first, right? The first minion. And Araragi and the two of them, whoever the other one is, maybe I'm kind of just blanking on something, but I think there was just one, are fighting for the position in the center of the screen of Shinobu's story, I guess, right? Or Kissshot's story in that way. It's also very interesting how it doesn't really fit in with all the other designs, because they're way more intricate and he's just normal. I mean, it fits in terms of like the art style and whatnot, but still, like, he doesn't fit in with all the details in the armor and whatnot. And we do have Flashing Loud Undead. Is that like the name of like the second thing? Mixed Beef, 89 seconds. Okay. We do have the dead people, right? Our basketball members here. Flashing. This is... she looks like Kobeni, doesn't she? Right? She looks like fucking Kobeni. But yeah, that's her, the first victim. And we're driving with the car, Shinobu in the car. We're driving past a couple of people, which is... First, Sodachi, Then we do have Meniko right here, right? They're looking at each other. So is there a connection or not? Holy shit, is there a connection? Then we have Izuko. After that, we follow with Kagenui and Ononoki, right? You miss it very quickly, but you do see Kagenui standing on something and Ononoki being like almost like a servant, right? Like the Shikigami she is. And then we have Kanbaru with somebody, but I don't know who it is. Is it Higasa or is it Numachi, right? Because it could still be like Numachi's spirit kind of with her. Because what we see a couple of seconds later is actually Higasa, right? No, it's not. Oh yeah, I think this is Higasa, right? I wouldn't know who else it is, right? I think this is Higasa. So it's probably Numachi, right? Behind her there, right? And then we have the Fire Sisters, right? Karen and Tsuki. And we have Hachikuchi looking kind of sad and down. I do wonder why. And we do have all of the victims which are piling up, kind of. Oh, I hope there's not too many of them that die. That would be kind of really sad, not gonna lie. We're speeding up like in the first intro, and then we have some kind of weird gate which looks like a gate to a bigger like estate that's housing a mansion or something. And we do have stuff that almost look like electrical lines or something. Very interesting. And then we have the first like gears flying in with Deathtopia being on top of them and being broken apart. I do wonder if at some point in time she also had that moment where she's being hacked apart in a way, right? Like Kiss Shot did in ShinobuMonogatari, that her body parts were kind of separated and whatnot. It feels like that could be an allusion to that, but it doesn't have to be necessarily. Oh yeah, as something else I wanted to point out is that this scene feels a lot like, the background feels like when we were at the shrine with like the bamboo forest around, like the background feels a lot like that. But yeah, she's being broken apart, kind of. I mean, I guess it could be that Shinobu is kind of breaking her apart, right? You're tearing me apart, Lisa. No, but yeah, that she's kind of breaking her to pieces or something. Either way, we have Shinobu, and behind her there almost seems like a halo behind her, which is very interesting, behind her head. Like she's some kind of deity, which kind of low-key she is, right? The king of oddities, used to pretend to be a deity for some time. So, yeah. Could easily be that, right? And Shinobu flew towards her. So it's very interesting that Shinobu flew into her and broke her to pieces. Because in this story right now, right, I mean, obviously Acerola flew to her and broke her to pieces in a way, but Shinobu herself, her current self, is more like Deathtopia is coming towards her. So I do wonder how we are supposed to read that. And we do have like them crashing into each other and scattering in all kinds of directions, and then we kind of turn tail and have some alternate versions of them, which is really cool. I do like that. And we do have like something that looks like shrine gates, but it also looks like the mask of somebody looking. Maybe it's like that. Maybe it's supposed to represent the first and the way he's kind of gathered around the shrine before he appeared again, where he was like this miasma of bad stuff from which he like kind of took his power again. And I do absolutely love her hanging upside down. That is in my opinion, that is the highlight of the entire shot, of the entire ED. Also, Deathtopia's head, interestingly, being separated. I do love me some Deathtopia head. Pause. That is brilliant. The mountain of corpses behind her stacking up and up and up. And then we have a flash of her kind of almost like she was in episode 7 when she was continuously tempted by Acerola and kind of losing herself, right? The line art, the squiggly ones and all of that. And now we have Shinobu, obviously, and in the background, all of the stuff that was her past, her entire history basically being flashed here. We do have her meeting, and almost like it looks like a very sacred thing, right? If you see the flashes here, they both have like the vampire wings and they're looking at each other. It's very intimate, right? So this is her first relationship, quote unquote, and we're zooming all in. And then we have the first, which was obviously her second relationship in a way. And then we're just I don't even know what that is, right? We do have this force coming with the yellow eyes. I would say it's Deathtopia, but it's weird that it comes here because then we change patterns and suddenly it's Araragi and her. And it almost looks like Araragi is driving his car and she's sitting in the back seat, which is really cool. And now we do have other people, Meniko and the members of the basketball team playing basketball with one another. Very interesting. What the fuck are they doing? Are they dancing or something? And we go back to the car, and then we ended on the piece and a screen of Deathtopia and Shinobu standing back to back, which is very cool. But yeah, that's it. That is Monogatari, off-season, monster season, the analysis. I do hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave me a like, subscribe to the channel. Episode 10 is probably coming, I don't know, end of next week, right? Like, not weekend, probably, if I can help it. I do hope I can get it out Thursday, Friday, whatever. But we'll definitely end of next week, right? And we're gonna inch our way towards a more normal or closer to release schedule again as we make our way through. Yeah, that being said, I hope you enjoyed everything. Do check out my socials, Discord, Patreon, all of that, if there's something interesting for you in there, and I'll see you next time. That reminds me, I totally forgot to show you what I wanted to show you, which is this here that I brought with me from home. Oh. Look at this, look at this. Look who this is, look who this is. I just wanted to show this to everybody. It's a really, really cool box set of the second box set of Monogatari, as you can see. Really, really cool. And on the other side, we do have somebody else that you know. Somebody else that you know. Look at that. Right, and here we do have all the books. I'm gonna show them to you, of course. First we do have ShinobuMonogatari Shiro, right, white. There we go. I always have to wait a little bit until we zoomed in a little bit. Second is Kabuki Monogatari. There we go. Very pretty. Especially with Hajikuji, double Hajikuji. We got, obviously, Otori Monogatari. Nadeko Medusa. Yeah, here we go. Very beautiful with the snake surrounding the two. Surrounding surrounding Nadeko herself. Very frisky there with the way Bofan did the illustration. And then we have Oni Monogatari with the sword. Yeah, I think it's in focus now. The sword. Especially like the back. I mean, we do have some very cool background designs as well. I forgot to show that. Not here with like the tiger one. We just have some tiger stripes on the back. Here we do have a more detailed version of Hachikuchi, and then, I mean, you've seen the price of the single ones, but you haven't seen the price of the fucking box set, because that is insane. This is our armor of the first, right? And we do have the snake skin design, which is really cool. Then we do have Koi Monogatari, one of my favorites, to be perfectly honest. Just because it's really, really cool and simple. And then we do have last but not least, Monogatari, which is very on topic right now. First the back with the Numachi, whatchamacallit, walking stick. You know what I mean. And then we do have Kanbaru right here. Really nice, really nice. Shame that there's no Numachi on there, but I like Kanbaru with long hair. You do not see that as often. Really cool as like the main illustration of the box set being this here. But yeah, I wanted to show this to everybody. This has been sitting at home for quite some time with like maybe I'll show that next time, the other box set for the first volumes, like first season and all of that, Bakemonogatari and following, including Neko Koro, I think, as well, which has been in there. But yeah, the only thing I'm still missing is the Ovari novels, which is very interesting because I actually like Ovari the most. But yeah, I'll see you next time.